structure the session will work is very simple. I will teach, demonstrating based on a live project we're working on right now. And then you would also ask questions. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want. I would always look at the comments area to see any questions that you have. And you can also ask the questions on the Telegram groups as well. So I'll be looking at the questions. Okay, that's good. So I'll be looking at the questions that you're asking, and then I will answer them as accordingly. Okay. And hopefully that should actually make things easier for you all. Okay, so bear with me, give me a second, and we should get started pretty straight. Okay, that's done. Just want to make sure that everyone's got this. Okay, everyone seems to have this now. I'm going to go to the other group, make sure they have. We have so many groups on the platform, so and we don't want anyone to be left out. So it's important that we send it to everybody so that everyone can call in, and then I can get started. Good. So let me put this on screen so that I can see it. So any questions you have will come up on the screen, and then I will be able to answer them accordingly, which hopefully should put you all in a position where you're comfortable enough to learn a few things. So happy New Year to you, IK. So I can see your comments. Wonderful. Happy New Year to you too. And let us get started. Now, if you notice, one of the things that we've been doing is, let me make sure that you can actually see me now. Good, you can actually see me. So I do need to raise it up a bit, unfortunately. Why? Because it looks as if you can't actually see. So there we go. Good. All right. So you should be able to see everything now. All right. You should be able to see everything now. Hopefully, I'm just waiting for. There's a bit of delay on here, so I tend to normally just sit and wait for it to show up. Good. Good. Okay. Now, so you can actually see everything now, which is good. Now let's kind of move forward and hit the ground rolling straight away. So if you listen to the previous sessions, we talked about a customer journey mapping out the customer journey, identifying the pain points, and then as a result of identifying the pain points, kind of identifying possible solutions, possible deliverables that would actually solve the problem we have. Now, what we now need to do is to create a use case diagram or use case documentation, which includes a use case diagram, which will show the interaction between the user and the system. Very, very much high level at this stage. Now, use case diagram is a type of UML, Unified Modeling Language, used by the business analyst. The business analyst's job is to justify, translate, and communicate. Justify why we're doing something, translate it from business requirements into technical requirements, and communicate it back and forth. Now, you need to be able to, where you're a translator, you need to be able to translate, you need to understand the business objectives, translate that into technical requirements, and communicate it back and forth until we deliver a fully functional working system that customers actually want to use. So in order for us to do, so the business analyst now have to use a number of unified modeling languages to become that interpreter. One of the unified modeling languages at the early stage of requirement gathering is very much what we call the use case diagram. A very simple diagram that shows interaction between the user and the system. Now, there are a few notations that are involved in the use case diagram. One of it is the use case itself. It's normally a verb, so something like buy or open account, kind of a thing. So that's kind of the actions of the user, what the user can actually do. Then you then have the stickman. The stickman is very much a notation that signifies the user. So we call it the actor, all right? And that actor can be a system or it can be a user, okay? It's very, very important that you understand that, okay? Then we then have the associations. The associations can be a connector, so it's kind of connecting this to this person, open account, buy or pay for whatever it is you want to pay for. That's an association. And a number of others as well, which is, for example, your include and very much your exclude, as you can see, like so. And then you have your generalization relationship, which is, for example, you can have an actor that performs a particular action, but that same actor performs other actions, okay? That's the actor performs other actions. So you have your general actor, and then you have your specialized actor, and you can actually link it using this arrow. So what you use is an arrow. So for example, I can let's just say that this is admin. So this is employee. So this is employee, and then that one is now admin. Now admin is also an employee. So this is a general actor. That's a specialized actor. So you can now connect the specialized actor admin to you can establish a relationship between specialized actor admin and also the general actor employee. So what are we trying to say here? So for example, employee can update client details. Employee can employee can update client details. Employee can add candidates, but only admin can delete candidates. So I hope that makes sense. So only admin can delete a candidate. So employee has the right to update and add, same thing as admin, but only admin can delete a candidate. I hope that kind of makes sense. Hopefully that really makes sense in that respect. Then you have the container. The container is very much the system itself. So you want to, because the use case is showing the interaction between the user and the system. Okay, that's the best way to actually explain it. So in that case, you actually need something to represent the systems, what we call the system container. Okay, so whatever activities that are happening within this system between the actors, potential users, okay. So showing the interaction between the user and the system. So this is the system. So showing the interaction between the user and the system. So you can now have the use cases, okay, within that system, and that defines what is in scope. Anything that happens outside is defined as what is out of scope. So you can have a use case outside of the scope of the system. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is say, John, developer, when you build this system, this is how this user will interact with this system, this is how the system will interact with the user, and this is within the scope of what it is that we're trying to do. So I kind of hope that makes sense. If it does make sense, please confirm that it makes sense, and then let me know, and I can move on to the next stage. Just indicate quickly that KG, this makes sense, I understand it very well, and I move on to the next stage very quickly. You can easily type in the comment box area, and then that helps me. So the more we are able to interact together, the more we're able to the more we're able to interact, the easier it is for me to know you understand, and the easier it is for you to understand as well. So once again, guys, waiting, good. Thank you very much. So makes sense. Thank you very much. Okay, so I can now move on. Now, normally I don't need everybody. I just need one person to indicate, and then that makes things much easier for me. All right, so now I can now move on. Now, what we're doing is we're building the eWork experience platform. We're rebuilding it. A use case diagram is very much necessary for fleshing out new requirements or improving an existing, fleshing out new requirements for a new system or improving an existing system. In this case, the eWork Experience platform is being improved as a result of the pain points we've identified and the possible solutions we have created. So we now want to define that, define exactly how the user will interact with that system. Normally, you start with a use case documentation. And then you can kind of define what the system does. All right. So you can say that the eWork Experience platform will allow people to be able to set up an account, gain practical work experience, and interact using the plugins that we have that enables them to attend meetings, join projects, listen to videos, track their progress, monitor their KPIs, select a mentor, attend specialist courses, attend live courses. That's what you would write down as what the system actually does. Then you now have to define what the actors are doing as well. So actor A, for example, let's say actor, for us, actor prospects. Okay, a prospect is somebody who hasn't actually who's not a candidate but interested in what we are doing. So prospect can watch the intro video. Prospect can take a personality test. Prospect can attend a free training session. Prospect can pay for the training session. Prospect, and then once the moment prospect has paid for the training session, that prospect is no longer a prospect. That prospect is now a candidate. Okay, so you've also become a candidate. So a candidate can log in to his account. A candidate can track his KPI. A candidate can listen to his video tutorials. He can pause his video tutorials. He can attend webinars and stuff like that. So that's basically what we'll do. Then we then have the actor admin. Actor admin obviously is the person administering the entire system, okay, and we will document that as well. So that is your use case documentation that you will need to create. So that's something I'm going to need you guys to do as we work on the eWork Experience platform. Document the use case. Document the use case. Okay, so once you understand that, once again, I just need one person to say, KJ, I understand that, makes perfect sense to me, and then I'll move on to the other place. So once again, just one person to say makes sense, or I understand, or you can ask a question, and then I'll move on to the next stage. Okay, so very quickly, please, let me know you understand that, then I can move on to the next stage, which is very much showing you, so we'll create two columns. Okay, the first column tells you who the actors are. The second, and how the actor interacts with the system. The second column shows you the system and how the system interacts back with the user. So very, very important, because that's the documentation side of things. Okay, so once again, I would kind of do that, take this off, and I can now do that. So we will now create a table, and it will have the actor, and then the system. So the system actions, the actor's actions, okay? We can just do that. So I would start, for example, maybe the first actor I'm looking at is the prospect, okay? So the prospect can watch intro video, okay? And then the system, when user clicks, when user loads website, for example, or clicks playback intro video. And once I play the intro video, then what is the other action? The prospect can take a personality test. And then when I take my personality test, the system displays results of personality test. Okay, so just kind of showing you the interaction between the user and the system. So my action is to take my test. The system's action is to display the result of the personality test. Very, very easy. It's like I said, it's very much an interaction between the user and the system. Early stages of requirement gathering, making it extremely easy for the stakeholders, the client, to us to say that, yeah, actually, in regards to what we discussed in our requirement workshop, this is exactly what we want the system to do. So one of the things a lot of people don't understand is they think that being a business analyst is being extremely technical. No, your job is to understand. Your job is to translate, communicate, and use the right techniques. One of it being UML diagrams at different levels at different stages of the project within the requirement engineering process to get confirmation of what is in scope, and be able to sit down with the developers to build it, confirming it constantly on a consistent basis back to the client to make sure that exactly what we agreed we want the system to do is what we are doing in terms of what we are building. So hopefully that makes sense to you, and I can now clear that off. So when we now meet on Wednesday, tomorrow, you would find that one of the things we would have to do as a team is we would have to create the use case document, and within that document we'll also show the interaction between user and the system, and then we'll obviously move to the use case diagram. So let us now move to that use case diagram. You remember that the first thing we need is a system, okay? So at the end of the day, we are building a system. So we need that container, that system container. So I'm just going to do that quickly. Bring that over here, and then do that. Okay, so we need that system container. Now you can create different instances of use case. You don't really have to put everything about that system in one diagram, because it gets confusing and stuff like that. So you can say that, okay, I want to create the instance of the user, of the prospect actually registering, and also of the prospect actually registering. That's what I want to do. Okay, so we now look at the actor. So the actor is, at this point in time, a prospect. Okay, so we're happy with that actor being a prospect. This is the system. All right. So how does the user interact with the system? What exactly is that user going to do? We know that the user, based on the documentation we created, that the user can watch intro video. This is what he does on the systems. This is for the prospect. We know that that prospect can, as a verb, can take personality test. Now, one of the things that really interesting about the use case diagram is the use of another use case called another relationship association called extend and include. So, for example, when I let's say, for example, I withdraw money from the cash point. If it is integrated in a way whereby I get an SMS saying that I have withdrawn money from the cash point, then when I withdraw money from the cash point, then it should include another use case sending an SMS to me confirming that I've withdrawn money from the cash point. I hope that makes sense. Now, so that is one instance of the include. Now, another instance of the instance of exclude would be, for example, I go to let me think of okay, I go to a restaurant and I order some I pick up the phone, so I go onto an app and I order I order food from the restaurant. By ordering the food from the restaurant, I now have the option to book a table, or sorry, I have the option to have the food delivered to me, or I have the option to go to the restaurant. That means that me ordering food doesn't necessarily include me booking a table, and doesn't necessarily include me having it delivered to me. So that means that ordering the food extends to booking a table, or ordering the food extends to having it delivered to me. Can you see that? So there is your extend and there is your include, and you gotta know the difference. Include means that when you do this, it must automatically do that. Extend means that when you do this, it's optional. It's optional that this other use case actually kicks in. I hope that makes sense. Now, once again, I'll keep looking at the question area to see if there are any questions that you are asking, so that I am up to date with what you're doing, and I'm going as slowly as possible so that you are not at any point in time lost. That's very, very important. And once again, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. It's an opportunity for you to learn. If not, you would find yourself extremely lost. Okay, so we know that the prospect can watch an intro video. He can take a personality test. We know that that prospect can register, and we know that that prospect can pay, can subscribe. Okay. All right. So we know that that prospect can subscribe. That is the actions of a prospect. Now, what else can the prospect do on the system is something we have to ask ourselves. Now, really and truly, we have another potential actor here. Okay. And that potential actor here is the candidate. All right. Now, if you think about it, is the prospect actually a candidate? It's very, very important that we think about that, because if they're two separate entities, we can't really, we can't call this one a specialized actor and then this one a general actor. Why? Because see, and I did this on purpose so we can actually think about it together and you can actually learn. So if you think about it, yeah, they are all potential customers. So say this one is a potential customer, this one is a customer. Two different people. What this person can do is different from what this person can do. But in reality, if we think about it, it doesn't one thing that's common for these two is that they are customers. One is a prospective customer, one is a customer, but they're still customers. Okay? So could we say that this is a specialist actor and then this one is a general actor? Now, the problem with the general actor here is that actually he is, when you think about it, a separate entity, because he while this person has an account, can log in, can do whatever the heck he wants to do, this person can actually do that. So they're two separate actors, two separate entities, so we can't generalize them. Okay, but where can we potentially generalize? Well, if we have on our platform, we have what we call mentors. Mentors are actually past candidates that have secured job and are now helping other candidates. So what a mentor can do, a mentor can do everything a candidate can do, but a candidate cannot do everything a mentor can do. So you can consider this as a general actor, and then the mentor as a specialist actor. Okay, because he has other features that he can take advantage of on the system that the candidate can actually do. So, for example, I'm going to remove this and just leave that as it is. Okay, and then I'll come over here. Is there any other interaction over here that's important for so for example, there's another thing here which is attend free training. Now, if the candidate chooses to attend free training, then include, that's where the include. So include is a dash. The arrow is always a dash. Then include another use case, which is send confirmation of training booked. If I register, then include send confirmation of login details. I hope it makes sense. Okay, so you can see the include coming in handy here. All right, which makes a lot of sense in this respect. Now I'm just going to go back to the other side because I want to actually bring in the another actor, which is admin here. Now this actor admin, what is he able to do in relation to the prospect? Well, if a prospect actually registers, then one thing should happen. I should be able to, what does admin do? Admin receives notification of a candidate that has registered. So when you register, although as I'm sending you my as I'm sending the prospect the confirmation, I also need to include notify admin. Okay, so admin is notified of admin. So the association between the user and the system is the admin being notified of a new registrant. If somebody registers to attend a seminar, then that person also needs to be notified. So include notify the admin. Okay, so that's another include over there. So we include notify the admin. Okay, what else can admin do? Well, admin can call the prospect. But you see, that is not happening within the system. That is happening outside of the system. So I will put a use case here called call candidate. Okay, and that is something that the admin can actually do, but it's not happening in the system unless we build a functionality whereby you can call directly within the system. Then there will be a button here that will say call candidate. Okay, which is what admin can actually do. And we now take this use case diagram, for example, we show it to the stakeholders and we say, hey, does this confirm what you were saying in terms of the user interacting with this, how the prospect will interact with the system and what the admin will do in this respect for this particular use case instance? And they will say yes, they sign it off. Then you can now go ahead and start fleshing that out in terms of your epic stories and your user stories, which is very, very important. And you would find that from over here now, an epic story is a collection of stories, and I can look at this use case diagram and I can actually see that the registration process of a prospect is an epic. Why? Because it's a collection of user stories. What is the registration process? Well, 1, I can watch the video. 2, I can take a personality test. 3, I can register. So that epic is a collection of that story. So I can now create the user stories for that prospect, title it registration, and then list all the user stories in regards to that, okay, which is really, really cool. Then I can also create an epic called subscribe. Now, why? Because the subscription process also includes a number of user stories. Why? User enters, for the user to be able to subscribe, user must enter his card details, user must confirm payment, the system must confirm payment of card details, notification must be sent to the user, and then account created for the user, 90-day subscription added for the user. Those are the stories of how the user will use the system, and as a result of that, that falls under the epic subscribe. Okay, so you can now see that from the user's use case diagram, it's easy for me to now start to flesh out requirements. Now, from that user story, I can now flesh out functionalities and tasks. Now, a lot of people get confused with the word functionality, and I'll explain that in a very simple way. You have a stereo system. What are the functionalities of your stereo system? You can play, functionality pause, functionality rewind, functionality fast forward, functionality stop. So the system, your stereo system, has a number of functions in it. Those functions are defined by how the user will use it. As a user, I want to play music. As a user, I want to fast forward music. As a user, I want to rewind music. As a user, I want to stop music. Now, that now leads me to understand that I need to create a function for the functionality play. So under the hood, okay, when we're now coding, we're now saying that when it comes to building the functionality play, these are the tasks that needs to be done by the developer, and these are the descriptions. So you can see that there is really nothing, this is technical, okay, but in reality there's really nothing technical about it apart from you interpreting in simple English how the user will use the system. You are a business analyst, you are a translator or communicator. Your job is to understand what a business is trying to do and translate it in a way whereby the developer can easily understand how to build it in terms of the logic. So you are not, or it's not rocket science to be a business analyst. You just need understanding of the business, what they're trying to achieve, and how to use the right techniques, in this case a UML diagram, to interpret it. Very simple, not rocket science, something you can easily do. Okay, and the question is, why do they pay a lot of people a lot of money for this? Well, it's pretty simple. Not everybody, businesses find it extremely challenging speaking directly with the developers. A developer has his own mind of how the thing will work. The way a business person sees, the business sees something is different from the way a developer will see it. Urgency is not important to the developer. Urgency is important to the business. The business is not technical. The developer is technical. So bring that mediator, bring that person who will be the translator and communicator between the two of them. And that is why there will always be a need for BAs. And as we move towards the digital age, the need for BAs keeps rising, and the need for you to have experience within that digital space is important. But also domain knowledge is important. So for example, we encourage everybody to attend the CRM session today. Why? Because look, you can't analyze what you don't understand. So if you don't have any domain knowledge in a particular area, you can't get a job in that area. Sorry about that, guys. So you can't get a job as a BA whether you're qualified or not. So as a result of that, it is so important. that that domain knowledge is there and you actually understand what is going on in that respect. So I'm just going to clear this off, and we're going to move on to another use case. That one will show the use case between the candidates, and also show the use case diagram demonstrating what the candidate can do on the platform. Okay, so just come over here and take that off. In fact, what I should have done is just removed but it doesn't matter. Let's take it from here and make it easy. I'm hoping that, okay, good, you can see everything is okay. So I'm just going to look quickly and see if there's any questions you're asking. Now, someone is saying, this one said this is better than joining the webinar. It's all a combination. They're all necessary, you know. What I'm doing now is, you guys know, we're building the eWork Experience 4.0. This is very much exploration for me as a business. This is very much exploration for me as a business. I'm trying to figure out exactly what works, what doesn't work. You know, do we create videos and make them very short for you to quickly, easily digest? But do we also demonstrate, rather than you looking at presentations, do we demonstrate it? Because obviously we're now 100% online. For us to look at what works online, not everything should be digitized. But when you do digitize, make sure you're replicating the real life experience, okay? But still give the benefit of accessibility anytime, anywhere, which is the power of digital, okay? So which is very, very important. Now, for example, you're all able to watch this anywhere from the convenience of your home. This is Facebook, so it's definitely mobile focused, understanding that the everyday user is mobile or upwardly mobile. So mobilization is key. Now the question now is, how do we now make this available for you to go back and listen to much later? And that is where we're creating a platform where the videos are broken down into categories, step by step, structured in a way whereby you know this is part 1, part 2, part 3, and it's easy for you to pick up and you can learn on the go. That is very much what we're trying to do here, you know, and we're opening that process up for you to learn and see how it works, so that as we're building it, you're gaining experience, getting your hands dirty, and you can go and apply for work as a business analyst. And that's why it's important that everybody calls in on Wednesday. I'm drawing this, but on Wednesday we're going to be using the tools to actually do it, okay? But understanding is very, very important. Okay, so let me just see any other questions. No, I don't see any questions. I can now continue. All right, so let us now look at the system. once again. All right, so that's that lovely system right there. Okay, and with that system, we are really looking at the interaction between the user, between the candidate. Okay, and then I'll come over here and I'll do mentor. Okay, so actor, mentor, actor, candidate, as you can see, like so. Now, one thing is important here. Remember I told you about that lovely arrow? This is the generalization relationship, that one, that signifies that. Okay, hopefully you can actually see that. Can you see it? So I want to make sure you can actually see it. So you're just going to go quickly and, oh yes, you can see it. But still, I think I would do that so that you can actually see it better. Okay, good. So I don't mind my head being cut off. I think the focus is on the board, isn't it, rather than me. All right. So since the focus is on the board rather than me, don't worry about my face. Focus on what you're trying to learn. So now I can say that this mentor is a specialist actor who is also a candidate. So I can now make that arrow right here and it signify that this actor is a specialist actor who is also a candidate, which means that this actor mentor can do everything this candidate can do. However, this mentor can do certain things that this general candidate can't do, this general actor can't do. Okay, so what can a candidate do? We already know that prospect registers, so a candidate can log in. So let's look at the basic things that the candidate can do. The candidate can log in. The candidate can listen to his video tutorials. The candidate can attend webinars. The candidate can take assessments. The candidate can attend project meetings. The candidate can join projects. The candidate can leave projects. Now, something that's important for you to be aware of, I'll just quickly do this. Sometimes, although it is not necessarily used, but it's something for you to be aware of, is that you can have a general use case and then the specialist use case. So what do I mean by that? So you can have a use case that says projects, and then within that, you have the specialist use case of join project, you have the specialist use case of leave project. Okay, so that under projects you now have join project, you have leave projects. Okay, so that's something that you can bear in mind, but we don't necessarily need that right now, so we're not going to worry too much about that. Okay, now what can the mentor do? Well, sorry, normally when you're doing it on the you and other tools, it would not be bent like this. This is me just drawing. All right, sorry. So the mentor can mentor candidate. The mentor can update a candidate's KPI. The mentor can confirm candidate has gotten a job. All right, so what does that now mean for me in this respect? Well, the candidate can track his KPI, and then obviously the mentor updates the KPI. The candidate can, but if we look at the new, so actually this is how the whole system works. We're really talking about the use case in regards to the new system. So actually in this case, we call this one specialist instructor. We've changed mentors into specialist instructors, okay? All right, because we feel that once you have decided where you want to specialize in, you should be able to select a specialist instructor, which means that this candidate can select specialist instructor, okay, and then can select a specialist instructor, and this candidate can also, I'm kind of getting messy here, this candidate can also join specialist groups. I hope it makes sense. All right, so if we look at this use case over here, we kind of understand exactly how the candidate interacts with the system. But then what are other conditions here? So for example, when I log in, is there anything that happens as a result of me logging in? You know, so when I log in, do I get a notification, or do I get, does anything actually happen in that respect? For example, we know that a candidate can subscribe, can renew subscription. So candidate can renew subscription. Okay, so when I renew my subscription, what actually happens? You know, those are kind of things we want to ask ourselves. But right now, we're just looking at the basic use case, basic interaction between the user and the system. So let's take each one of them one by one. So I can select specialist course. So as a candidate, I can select a specialist course. But there's something that happens when you select a specialist course. If you don't qualify for the specialist course that you select, you won't be able to access it. So, for example, when I select a specialist course, does that include me being added? So does it include me being added to the specialist course, or does it, because that's something that always happens, or does it extend to me being added to the specialist course? So extend to the specialist group. All right. So I select a specialist course, then that would extend to adding user to specialist. They're too small. So adding user to specialist group. Why? Why is it an extend? Well, it's an extend because just because you select it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to join it. Okay, so it's something that the system will do, whereby it will check if you've actually qualified, and then you do that. So you can see that all of a sudden here, I'm limited on what I can really do in terms of understanding the conditions involved as a result of me performing certain actions. All right, now I'm just showing the high level interaction between the user and the system. I can track my KPI. And I guess you can't really, there's no other action there apart from when the user updates the KPI. So if I come over here, when we look at update KPI. So if I update KPI, what actually happens? Well, every time you update a KPI, it should always include, every time this user updates this KPI, it should always, so update KPI, it should always include notify candidate of KPI update. So that should go. So what happened here? So track my KPI. Let me see. Every single time I update my KPI, it must notify the candidate that my KPI has been updated. Okay, so that's fine. That's actually fine. So that's good. Mentor candidate. So as a so I select a specialist group. So I select a specialist group. So when I select a specialist group, then it should include notifying the mentor that I have been. So it should notify the mentor that I have been added to the specialist group as well. Okay, so those are kind of the areas that I'm looking at in terms of where the extend is necessary and where the include is necessary. So this is include. Okay, when I listen to videos, not much action there, but when I listen to a video, it must track it must update my KPI. So that every time I listen to a video, it must extend to update KPI. So it must include update KPI. Now, because when I listen to a video, that means that because we track how many videos you listen to, which means that the KPI must be updated so you can track your progress. So that means that every time I listen to a video, it must include updating the KPI. I want to attend a webinar. Well, when I attend a webinar and I register for that, I want to register for, let me use this word, register for a webinar. So when I register for a webinar, it should include, okay, what should it include? It should include me actually getting a notification, send notification for webinar attendance. Okay, so that's another thing that is important. You see, I've actually gotten myself in trouble. Okay, assessment. So I must take an assessment. Now, when I take an assessment, I will either pass that assessment or I will fail that assessment, isn't it? So when I take an assessment, there is an extend, isn't it? So that's the arrow there. So there's an extend, and that extend is what? It's something you have to think about. So when I take an assessment and I pass and I fail the assessment, it means I can't go to the next stage. If I take an assessment and I pass the assessment, it means I can go to the next stage. So in this, that's kind of very much a logic, a condition. You know, do we really need to put that condition here, or do we just leave it as take assessment? When we create the process flow diagram, we cannot put that condition there because it's not necessarily, you can't say it's necessary here. So let me just think about it. So I take my assessment. As soon as I take my assessment and I pass my assessment, I can actually go on to the next stage. If I take my assessment and I don't pass my assessment, I should be notified of that I didn't pass my assessment. so I should take the assessment again. So that means that there can be an extend here that says take assessment, and that is notify of next stage when I take my assessment. So the notification of next stage is you have been successful, please go to next stage, or you have not been successful, please take your test again. I will flesh that out later on when I'm creating the process flow diagram, the data flow diagram, explaining the conditions involved. But right now, I'm very much focusing on just showing the interaction between the user and the system. And it's very much early days. It's very much sitting down and saying, hey, client, remember what we talked about in our requirement gathering workshop? Well, this is to show you the interaction between how the user will use the system by using actors and use cases to show that interaction. And once you're happy with this, I can go back and now and flesh this out. So on Wednesday, this is what we're going to be using the Confluence tool, Glyphy, to actually do, to create all the instances of the use case. Then we'll use Confluence, we'll use the documentation area in Confluence to create the use case diagrams and also to create the actors. So what I love is the fact that there are many instances of use cases we need to create here, and as a result of it, many of you will have different ones to try out. So you go away, you try it out, you come back, and then we'll kind of review it together, make sure that you're all experts in creating use cases. Once we've been able to do this, the next thing we now need to do is go away and start to build things from the user's perspective, because we work in an agile environment, and because of that, we need to build things from the user's perspective. We need to make sure it's user-centered design. So let us build it in the way the user will use the system rather than from a functionality perspective. When you build from a functionality perspective, you end up with so many functionalities that are not necessary. When you build from the user's perspective, you end up with a minimum viable product. Because that user story will be based on the immediate business value and what the user needs to do right there and then. So I hope that makes sense. I don't want the video to take too long. I'm going to pause it now, and then the next video will focus on the epic stories and the user stories we need to create, which will help us define features, define functionalities. Then we can now move on to the process flow. Sorry about that, guys. So and then we end up with a Bible of how the system. All right, so sorry about that, we got distracted there. So we'll now end up with a Bible of how the system will actually work, which we'll hand over to the developer, who would obviously go ahead and build it. So I hope you've learned a great deal here, and then we'll see you in a few minutes, I hope, once I'm able to get the rest of it ready. All right.